you guys hear that?
Oh, I
I
can hear
can,
that.
yeah, I can.
Okay.
It's
I thought maybe you could. So, what's up, fellas? How you doing this week?
good. How's it
Nate,
going?
Doing all
I was
right.
talking to Nate. I was
Oh,
talking
okay,
to
fine.
Nate. Sorry. How you
Yeah,
doing, Nate?
my name is Fellas now. I'm sorry.
Yes, yeah,
I'm
just
doing good, man. Just getting, gearing up for surprisingly enough,
yeah.
2024 is a few weeks away.
It's close. It does not sound like a real year. Like, oh, what are you doing 2024? I was like, that nothing, because that doesn't exist. That's
It's like that's next year.
2024.
It's
That's
crazy
yeah,
that.
it doesn't even sound right. So I will say I'll just say that I graduated high school before Y2K, and
Mhm.
it felt really futuristic. The year 2000, I mean, there were space odysseys in the year
Mhm.
2001. So it was kind of crazy. But now getting 2020, 2023, 2024, I mean, doesn't even sound real
I
anymore.
always I
So
always liked the bit when I used to watch some of the late night shows that Conan O'Brien used to do in the year 2000, which he was running in like 2002 and
okay,
2005,
yeah,
and they would
yeah,
wear all the space costumes and talk about crazy things that were going to happen in the year 2000, which was like several years past. I
okay,
was amused by that.
okay.
So every
You
time
know,
2000 comes up, I'm like, in the year 2000.
we lost O'Brien.
Mm,
We have lost O'Brien. It's okay. He'll come
right.
back if he feels like it. He's been having a lot of tech difficulties lately. He
Yeah,
probably needs to
and
buy a new computer or something.
I mean,
On
fortunately
the
though, fortunately it happened when he was trying to sing. So, oh, there he is.
That's
Welcome
probably
back.
for the best. Sorry,
unfortunately or
sorry, guys.
fortunately. So yeah. On the flip side of that, Brian, with the year 2000 thing, it's kind of fun to look back at the old videos when like the ones that actually tried to predict what was coming in the future. And there's one that's, I think, from like the 80s or something, that I think the 80s, that's from AT&T, and they're talking about their future technology. And they show a flat screen TV, but it's like the first gen ones, it's like as thick as a Bible. So it's like this thing set, they've got it setting up, and they're like, a TV you can hang on your wall. Sure, if you want to hang 30 cinder blocks on your wall, then go for it. And it says, do you want to be able to tuck your kids into bed from across the country? And it shows people having a video call, but they're at a payphone. So it's they got that right, but somehow thought payphones would still be the thing.
Did they think
Mhm.
people would be sleeping in payphones? Because that's an interesting idea. I mean,
Brian, as many times as I've mentioned that, I never thought about
huh.
that fact that the person, I think they were saying this person's traveling for business. And I guess that's assuming that you had a video phone at home, but I guess mobile phones didn't exist there or
Probably
whatever.
not.
So
Yep.
maybe the technology, they just didn't project that would go to the point where the speed was fast enough to do that. But look where we are now. Look where we are now.
Amazing. Yes.
It is amazing. Yeah. All right. Well, guys, we got plenty of beery stuff to talk about. So we're going to jump right into this, y'all. If you're watching the stream, you got a question or comment on anything we're talking about, throw it in the chat. We would love to hear from you. And here we go. Welcome, everybody. This is the Beer Guys Radio Show. We are happy to be here. Happy to have you with us. And now with at least 100% more lemonade and pinball talk. We know that you'll be looking forward to that. Actually, we got some good beer stuff to talk about this week. The holidays are coming up. So, of course, holiday beers are great. There's more beer drama out there, Brian. It just keeps happening every week, even outside of what we would expect, with things going on. A lot of infighting within breweries,
Yes.
internal disagreements. Miller Lite, macro beer, but they do cool things with their swag. We'll talk a little bit about that. And we just had breaking news that we just saw the article. We're going to piggyback off of a Vine Pair post on the 30 best breweries in America. So we just saw that and kind of went over that. We've got a little bit of local representation and a few other breweries that definitely sound pretty darn good. But I am Tim Dennis, and Brian Hewitt, how the heck are you?
I'm doing good. And as you said, we've got all that fun stuff going on, and that breaking news. That news is broken. We're going to fix it on this show.
We'll fix this news.
That's right.
We can
That's what
fix
we
it.
do with broken news. Yeah, we
We're
fix
like
it.
news therapists, Brian.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Hey,
Nate, how the
Mike
heck are
Nate.
you?
Doing well, fellas. How are y'all?
We're good. We're good. We're just getting ready to do some beer therapy here. I'm sipping. I'm sipping here. This glass is deceptively large. Like it holds the better part. I'm thinking that's more than 12 ounces. That because it held the better part of a 16-ounce can of beer. So, but it doesn't look that big, does it? I know
No,
if you're
not
listening to
really.
the podcast, you can't see this, but it's one of those stemless. It's like a stemless teku, I guess, is essentially what I've got here. Let me turn it
Yeah.
around and do some little representation for
Ooh.
it's Three
Oh,
Taverns 10th anniversary glass.
I
So
think it's one of those things where what's the mathematics involved in it? Geometry, where like a
the
small increase in
yeah,
circumference makes a huge difference in the amount of fluid you can hold. So you can sneak a surprising amount of beverage into some of those. I'm always surprised when I order a 4 ounce pour someplace and how small the glass looks. Now they could be shorting me, but I think
they
it
do.
really
The
is.
4 ounces does seem small. It does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, but I'm expecting 4 ounces in the actual glass again. It's like, wow, is that 4 ounces? That's
Are
very,
you
very
sure?
small. But then you think about a shot glass, like the average size of a shot glass is maybe what at top
What
it's
are they? 2
2
ounces
ounces.
like?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
two
yeah.
shot glasses basically.
What's a
So
shot, Nate? 3/4 of an ounce. Is that right? Is considered
So
a shot?
1.5 ounces.
Is a shot. So a double
Mhm.
shot is 3 ounces essentially, is what
Correct.
you're looking at. Okay. All right. All right. I had it wrong. It was a 1.5 was a single instead of the 3/4 there. So I was so close.
yeah,
I
you
was
know what
halfway there.
I,
I was halfway there, guys.
that's
So
right.
What?
guys, I'm going to mix it up today. We're going to go ahead and talk about some of the beers that we're getting into. I have Spyglass Brewing Company's Key Lime Pie Sour. You taste the whole pie here, guys. It's got
Sounds incredible.
the creaminess that you would get from it. Very punchy, bright lime, but not bracingly sour because there is sweetness in here as you would have in a pie. And I even get the crust in here. So this is tasty. If you like the key lime pie sours, that's really good. Brian, what's in your glass?
This is still leftover from my pregame. It is the Sierra Nevada celebration. Yes, I'm drinking it again because YOLO. I mean,
Do it.
I've got
Do
a
it
bunch
while
of
you
them, and
can.
I've been experimenting with heavier pours on this to see how it tastes, and I do like
Okay.
that. So,
Is
yeah,
that inspired by one of our news stories this week about the hard pours and getting a little
yes.
foamy over there? Okay. All right.
Actually, yes, but this is something I have done in the past. I got away from it because I was drinking pretty much exclusively out of a smaller Teku glass, and it's a little harder to do a heavy pour on that. It's
Right.
just not
Right.
set up for it. So I've got a squat pint glass that's short, wide, and
Bodega glass? Isn't
it's
that
one of
what
the
they call
bodega
those?
glasses.
Oh
Yeah, I
yeah.
All
think it's
right.
like
Yeah.
16, 17 ounces. I don't know exactly, but it's perfect for a 12-ounce pour if you're going to pour it hard. So,
Pour hard. Nate,
yep.
what is in your glass?
I'm rocking the Goose Island Run the Jewels collaboration Golden Ale right
Okay.
now.
All right. How is it?
Some
I have one, but courtesy of Nate, I have one. I
Mhm.
haven't opened it yet. How is it?
It's easy drinking. I mean, it's everything I want a Golden Ale to be. I didn't notice anything that was like a special thing about it besides that on the can it just said how Killer Mike and LP spent some
LP?
time
Yeah.
at the brewery, but I didn't see if there was any special ingredients involved in making the beer. It's a
Fair.
great tasting golden ale.
All right. Good deal.
Okay,
Good
cool.
deal. Also going through, we have Brian. You got a little wrecking bar, a Big Slurp Imperial IPA. That was the Strong Beer Fest happened in Atlanta last weekend, and that won the best IPA category. So you got a can of that.
Correct.
In the seasonal spirit, Brian's got a Delirium Noel 2022 edition that he's going to get into.
Mm,
As Nate mentioned, the Goose Island RTJ collab. He's got a little Trillium Fort Point in there, classic
mhm.
pale ale there, and a little Bell's Hop Slam action there. So get all into that. Beers of the week, no longer sponsored by the Nest because the Nest is no more. We love them. We wish them the best. They're going to reopen. I think I mentioned that before. They're going to reopen as a new concept in the new year in 2024. So they say, like that's a
A
real
fake year.
thing.
Yeah, like if
So
that even exists.
yeah, crazy stuff, guys. I tell you what, the best breweries. Nate, have you looked at the article yet?
I have.
Okay, then I was going to ask you to make some guesses on what you thought might be in Georgia, but I will say something about beer list and when you see a best of list, we used to do a best of contest, okay, for Beer Guys Radio, best of Georgia beer, and we tried to do it as fairly as we could by letting the people vote. We did a nomination round, then we took like the top 5 from each of the nomination rounds, and then we did a final vote there, and we announced like the top 3 of each category. It was always controversial. People always got upset about it. There was one time when there was a misspelling of a certain beer's name, and 47 people misspelled it exactly the same way, if you know what I'm saying here. So it was hard to do. We didn't do it anymore because, to be honest, I think it lacked integrity, Brian. It was fun and we had some good times with it, but it was hard to keep up with. And so, with that in mind, with our experience with trying to put one of these beer lists in mind, and also from seeing other best of brewery lists, I love all Georgia breweries. I wish them all the best of luck. I wish all brewers the best of luck. But some brewers are not the best breweries in the state. That's just all the way there is to it. So, and there's some that fairly well known that they wouldn't be listed in the best breweries in the state that would make it on these lists. And I know the people at all the breweries, especially in the Atlanta area, most all of the breweries. And so it's like, I didn't wish them poorly. I'm just like, hey, they shouldn't be on this list. So that always made me question the others on these lists. Like, if I know these breweries and I know that they're not the best that we have to offer, what's the rest of this list like? And I guess, to be honest, does it really matter? It's just someone putting out a list there. You read it, you have fun with it. If you agree with it, you agree. If you don't, you don't. And sometimes I think that there are some put on there that are meant to be controversial to get people talking and sharing and all of that. So that is my thought on best of lists. And I'm glad you asked. Thanks for providing me that platform, Brian, to share that opinion.
It's been a fantastic TED Talk, Tim. Thank you very
much. Thanks. Thank you for
very
coming to my
educated,
TED
enlightening.
Talk.
Yeah.
With that said, the ones that were listening in Georgia, I definitely agree with. I think they did. There's some others I would have thrown into the mix as well, but definitely from Georgia, Halfway Crooks. You guys have heard us talking about them a lot. Good Word Brewing, another one we talk about a lot. And Inner Voice. I know we've mentioned it, but probably not as much as like Good Word and Halfway Crooks. But those were the 3 that got nods from Georgia. We'll put this link when we do the post for this. We'll share the link to this. But I'm sure if you just look for Vine Pair's Best Breweries 2023, you'll be able to find it. And we'd love if there's some in your local area to know what you think on there. But what are some of the other ones, Nate? What are some of the other ones on the list that you know of and think they deserve the shout out they got there?
So one of the ones that caught my eye was Drinker, which, Drinker is out of, I believe, Fargo, North Dakota, and that's just not a place I would have. Yeah, it is Fargo, North Dakota. My dad's from Fargo, North Dakota. He grew up in Fargo. That's not a place that I would think that not a hype brewery,
Top
but
30
a
brewery would be. Yeah,
top
okay.
30 brewery would be. And so it was really cool to see that city and that state, a brewery repping that city, that state on this list. And then another one, I mean, Allagash White is one of those early Belgian beers that I had that, I always enjoy seeing Allagash and trying. I think Black was one of their big ones a while back. And then another one that I saw, I've been seeing a lot more of Bottle Logic recently. And so I've been seeing a lot of my friends getting on the hype train for some of their releases.
Good stuff.
I think I saw Bottle Logic on another list as being in the top 10 or the top whatever of like stout producers in the country, like across the board. I believe Bottle Logic was in there. It may have gotten more mentions. I just happened to remember seeing that. So that seemed to be a one we saw shares a lot back when we used to go to a lot more
Bottle Logic.
shares.
Yeah,
used
they always
to be
showed up at the shares.
at least one there, and people were very excited about it, as they probably should.
Of course.
So,
Side Project, Bottle Logic, those used to show up at the shares, and it was always something to look forward to there. But yeah, Allagash, Bottle Logic, Jester King, Jackie O, Schilling, Suarez family. Some solid names on there. I think based on the breweries I do know, I kind of trust that these others are probably in league with those other ones there. But interesting list. Check it out. Those are always fun. Whether you agree or disagree, it's always fun to look at these. And especially if your favorites get mentioned and you're like, yeah, that's right.
Getting
That's
3
right.
placements, in a top 30 list, and now I get that it was the opinions of various people they asked, so everybody
Right.
recommended a brewery,
Sure.
but 3 for Georgia out of 30, and at last I checked, there were 50 states. That's pretty good. That's
Not
pretty
bad.
good.
Not
Yeah,
bad.
not half
I
bad.
didn't I didn't read through to see methodology or anything. I just looked at the list there, but I don't know if there was anything with voting or anything like they had to get a certain number or anything like that. But either way, cool little list, fun list to look at. The ones we know we agree with. So good stuff there. Now, Brian, there's 30 beers on that or 30 breweries on that list. So plenty to try if you want to work through them all. But as the holidays come up, there's another way you can try a whole stinking bunch of beers, right?
Yeah, there is, and I've seen a bunch of things about people talking about beer advent calendars. I've seen people doing their own thematic beer advent calendars, and apparently it's kind of tradition amongst craft beer nerds to trash talk Costco's annual beer advent calendar. But at the
Okay.
same time, apparently, and I've never bought one, but it sells out quickly, I guess, or sells really well. So it's a strange thing where I think the market definitely supports these being a thing, but you've got people saying things like, quote, it's a case of third string German lagers in a confusing box, which amuses me a great deal.
Okay.
But I do happen to know that this year, having looked at a few posts about it, that it has a stout and a rock beer, and I think there's a dunkel in there as well. But about half of the box, like 7 of them, are Helles lagers, and I'm not angry at that. And I guess for an advent calendar is that 12? I don't actually know how many is in an advent calendar. Is it
I
20 or
don't
is it
either.
12? I don't.
Nate, producer Nate, got to put your producer hat on again and hit the Googles and find out exactly how. Is it 30? Is it 21? 14? Is it the
Yeah, it's
12
like
days of Christmas that
I think it's 12, right?
line with it?
It's 12.
It's 12, right?
Is it?
Okay, so the box is just a penny under $70, and I I've never done one, and I think, should I do a beer advent calendar? Have you guys ever done one, and would you do one? And what do you think?
No and no for me,
Okay.
Brian. And here's for one, I know as a beer guy, I shouldn't say this, but I'm not a daily drinker. There's times when I'm too busy or I just honestly don't want a beer. So having a beer daily, even for a couple weeks, is not my thing. I swear I think it's more than 12. We'll see what Nate finds for us. But
That's kind of seems
Nate
right.
has an answer. Nate, tell us.
So the lion's share is 12, but I've seen a lot that are
Okay.
showing 24 or 15. So it seems like
Okay.
24 or 12.
So there's not a hard and fast this advent is this. Okay, so it can vary is the answer there. I did a chocolate one time, Brian, that just had like a single bite of chocolate in there, and I saw that there was a Scotch one at Costco this year. There was like
Oh,
125, 130 maybe, but much like the beer one, the Scotch drinkers online were trashing it pretty good, saying it's a bunch of Midland Scotches, pretty much is what you're getting out of that. So
as somebody who hasn't done a lot of exploration of Scotch in quite a while, I like Scotch. I just it's not been something I've been drinking. It's either been
right,
bourbon or beer for the most part. I would do it even knowing it was Midland stuff to just refresh what I know about it. I'm curious about this advent calendar mostly because it's something I haven't done before, and I don't hate that it's a lot of Helles lagers. I there's a lot of interesting breweries that I've never heard of before, and apparently some of the beers are actually quite nice. And some of the beers are produced in Castle breweries, apparently.
all right,
So actual legitimate German castles brewing beer. So I'm like, I kind of like this idea. The rock beer is not the Schlenkerla. It's another Bamberg brewery, but I don't think I've ever had that one. So
okay,
if I happen to go to Costco and it's around, I think I might get this. I might be late to it.
check
If
it
it's
out, right?
12, I might have time to do that still. Yeah, I guess I do. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a good way. It is a good way if you want to try a variety of beers. But that's another thing for me personally is I've tried like beer of the month clubs and that, and most of them are not great. So it's like, yeah, okay, it's fun to try new beers, but if half of them suck, then that's no fun. That's not fun. Nate, have you ever done one?
So I've done a chocolate advent calendar before.
Okay.
I've got a
Okay.
Costco near my house, and I look at this beer advent thing that comes out every year. This one, it's showing 24 beers. I struggle to be okay with spending $70 on a 24 pack. I know it's a little bit more labor intensive to, manually pack individual, it's a 24 pack variety, but I just
Yeah.
wouldn't
I mean,
feel
you're
comfortable spending that much money.
fair. Fair.
Now, did you find the box confusing? Because people have said it's a confusing box. Were you
I
perplexed
didn't
by
buy
it?
it, so I didn't actually fiddle with it. I
Okay,
just saw the price and I kept on walking.
I wasn't sure
Do
if
you
the
have any
confusion was on the
additional
inside or
info on that, Brian, on why it's confusing?
no, it was just a comment about it
Okay.
was just one of the amusing comments, and I'm like, I saw a picture of the box. I'm like, it's a box of beer. What's confusing about that? I don't
All
know what they
right.
were expecting. Did they not know how to open it somehow, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Eh,
What else do you think needs an advent calendar? Like I saw a comic strip today where, like in the first frame, one character asked the other one, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm going through my bacon of the day advent calendar."
yeah,
And he's like, the other character's like, "Wow, wouldn't they make you really thirsty?" He's like, "I've already got that covered," and he's got a craft beer advent calendar to go with it. So,
You've got
well,
one.
Nate,
Is there
Nate,
is there a tinned fish advent calendar?
oh,
I'm down with that. I should have created one. The FOD, fish of the day. That would
that's
be it. That would be it. So I kind of do that on my own, to be honest with you. But yeah, good call, Nate. Good
Advents
call.
all year long. I was just thinking, aren't you part of like a cologne of the month type of thing, like a cologne
I
advent
am.
calendar with a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
spritzer in
yeah.
each day? I don't know
Right.
if I would get that, but I mean that might work for some people.
For every day, that would be tough. I mean, I do once a month is good enough for me to get a new scent and see what one I like. So I get these little. It's like $15 a month, and I get enough for about maybe 2 weeks good worth of like daily usage in there. And then if I like it, I can, purchase it. Because cologne, I don't know if y'all know, cologne's friggin' expensive these days. Like good cologne is $200 for like I think a whisper of an ounce or something. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is crazy. How about cheese? And as you go through, the cheese gets progressively funkier and bluer. And
Funkier. Yeah. And for certain cheeses, they'll actually be funkier at the end of the calendar than they were when you bought the calendar.
it's kind of what
So
I'm thinking. They're all
it's a
cheddars, but at
at the end. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
blue cheese by the time you get to the last one. Yeah.
That's it. Exactly. No, cheese I could do maybe fish or it's funny that the beer one doesn't grab me as much, but the scotch one I was like, that's kind of interesting. And again, I think the reason I lost interest is I'm like, well, I don't want to drink a dozen meh scotches, So just no point. I'll just buy some scotch. I'll just go out and buy some scotch and then we'll take care of it.
That would about do it. Yeah.
It would. But on the seasonal theme, the holiday theme, Brian, if you haven't looked, if you don't know, Miller Lite loves to make cheesy beer swag. Was Miller Lite the one that did the drops that we got? I think they were,
I
right?
believe so. Yeah, you could change
Yeah.
any of your other boring macros into their boring macro with the
Yep.
beer drops. It was
Yep.
great.
It tasted horrible. To me, it didn't taste anything like Miller Lite, but and when Brian, we did a good job. See, yeah, Brian's got a box of those beer drops right there. We bought like Natural Light Miller. We bought several to try and see what impact it had. And was it just like a buttery, just like a diacetyl taste? I forget actually.
I think it was kind of close to being like a maple syrup type of flavor or
Yeah, it was
something
weird.
like
It just
that. It was like
wasn't
a
right.
caramel
Yeah.
syrup type. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah. But outside of that, they've done some cool stuff. Remember one summer they did like a popsicle maker. You can make your beer sickles or whatever. They did back this year is one Beernaments. That's a Christmas tree ornament that can hold a 12-ounce beer. And so those are popular. They sell out quick, but I think they're releasing them in batches this year from what I recall. And they recently did a beer cracker, which was a nutcracker. He had like a staff with a Miller Lite can on it and that. Brian, I think you may know this. I don't know if anybody else does, but my mother collected nutcrackers. And so when she passed away, I got her collection. I've kind of carried that on. So I probably have 50 nutcrackers.
Wow.
So Yeah.
Mm.
So I was gonna try and get that one because that would have been a unique one to add to the collection. And at some time there are German made like bougie nutcrackers that are several $100s. I would like to get a premium one to add to my collection because most of mine are Walmart, Home Depot, type things. They're nothing fancy. They're just they're neat. And so when the holidays come around, setting them all out into a neat little display, looks like my house is guarded by a bunch of guys that'll take you out and crack your nuts for you. So it's pretty cool.
Not a
It's pretty
solid nut
cool.
to be seen. That sounds like me in wanting to get an authentic, real deal German beer stein, the one with all of
Yeah.
the intricate
Right.
stuff in the steel or whatever metal
Mm-hmm.
topper on it. And I see stuff that looks like it's probably authentic, and none of it's south of $100. I think it's like
Oh yeah.
120 or
Yeah.
more, but I don't have a reason for it. I think I would drink out of it once. I'm not sure if you're even supposed to with some of them or if they're just ornamental.
Yeah.
And also, I'd probably be murdered for bringing something like that into the house with all the other glassware I've got. But
Right.
yeah,
I
I still want one.
So I had an uncle that collected the Budweiser ones because Budweiser either does or did or does a Christmas beer stein each year, and he had probably
Mhm.
40 years of them. And talking about classic German made, I guess there's a lot of stuff that the Germans just make pristine versions of. Because had another uncle that collected cuckoo clocks, and I
Mm.
guess there's Bavarian made cuckoo clocks that get pretty advanced. No, sorry, it wasn't my uncle. It was a coworker, my boss at the time, collected cuckoo clocks, and I believe he actually did have some of the really nice German ones. And they were cool. So Germany's
The
got
one,
something for you out there.
the ones where the little guys come around the front of it
Yeah,
and
like it
banging the
rotates
bell.
around, and there's a little scene on there and all that. So they get
Those are
pretty
pretty
fancy
cool.
with some of those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those are cool.
absolutely. But Brian, aluminum tariffs. We've heard so much about aluminum over the last year, can shortages and all kinds of stuff. But what's up with the aluminum tariffs?
Yeah, it's really weird. I think people don't realize that people knew when they went into effect 6 years ago that there were aluminum tariffs, and there were, a lot of people were opposed to that just because, well, necessarily it's going to drive up the cost of everything that goes into a can. It's still in effect, and these tariffs have cost beverage manufacturers 2.175 billion over the past 6 years. The crazy thing is about 94% of that has gone to aluminum smelters and rolling mills in the US and Canada. They they got all of they've raised the price across the board for all their products, including stuff that doesn't is not affected by the tariffs. So they're raking in the cash. Only $135 million of that 2.175 billion has ended up in the US Treasury. So I don't know if they ever expected to really collect on any of that or not, but yeah, they didn't. They didn't. The smelters are
Interesting.
doing quite well with that. So this went
Okay.
well. I think. Just
Okay. Interesting. So 2.175 billion cost to American beverage manufacturers eh, in reference to or because of the tariffs, correct?
correct. Yeah, the
But only
actual increased fees.
135 million out of that ended up in the treasury.
That's what I saw. I
Okay.
should give
All
credit to
right.
the Brewbound's email newsletter. They quoted
Brewbound.
that. I'm
Okay.
not sure how
Yeah.
you do that other than to do some fancy footwork. I think that what they're including is the raise of prices across the board under the
Yeah.
guise of the tariffs, which only 135 million of the funds actually coming in really was tariffs, and the rest of it was using tariffs as an excuse. So
Okay.
Mm.
Gotcha.
so the
Yeah.
tariffs, maybe I don't fully get the accounting and how this is possible. Taxes are weird, but yeah, it sounds like there's some exploitation, and this is definitely. I think breweries and other beverage makers are getting screwed in the process, and it's a rough time. Their expenses are up. It's causing beer to be more expensive to the end consumer. So everybody's getting screwed by this. Really, this did not go well.
There are
I
no
want to throw that
winners
out there.
here. No win.
The
Well,
smelters,
smelters, it
yeah,
sounds like, right? Yeah.
yeah, smelters and rolling mills,
You,
they did really well.
Brian, you and I have talked about this before, and I think we differ a little bit on our opinions on this. When there's high inflation and prices are being driven up as it is, I think a lot of corporations do jump onto that to raise prices even more beyond what needs to be done. As a matter of fact, they had a undercover phone call of some executive business that's like, basically he said just that. He's like, look, we're having a high period of inflation here, we can really hit these prices. And he threw a bunch of corporate speak out for making higher profits. Basically he's like, we can put the screws to people on here because they won't blame it on us right now, they'll just say it's inflation. And anytime there is a period of inflation or everything's expensive, when it does come back down, we're never going to come back down proportionally to what it should. Never. Whether it's gas prices or whatever it is, they're going to keep a little bit of that. If you raise the price on a $10 item by $3 and you're like, oh my God, inflation, we can't do this. And then the cost to you drops to where you could go back down to 10, then you're going to take it down to 11 and people are still going to be like, oh, it's cheaper now. That's great. So, and I think that's just the way it goes. We get the shaft, and over the course of years, things happen like college tuition going from $600 to $40,000, things along those lines. So everyone loses, Brian, in everything.
I would say my only caveat there is in any industry, it depends on how much competition there is. I think in smelting and aluminum, yeah, we're probably boned. I don't think any of this is going down. I don't think the smelters have any reason. They'll lift the tariffs unless that there is competition to secure more. Like, I don't think there is. They have no reason to. And if perhaps they're in cahoots, they both realize, well, we're both doing really well. We're at capacity. There's no reason for us to lower our prices. Why would we bother? There are some industries where when the prices, when things get cheaper, the prices do in fact go down. So
they do, but I'm saying that they're always going to take advantage of an increase to keep a little bit of it when they do go down.
Likely.
Maybe I shouldn't say always. Maybe I shouldn't say always. The majority of the time, they will take advantage of that.
Yeah, it's typically yes. I mean, it would have to be really weird for them not, like, you hear about price wars occasionally, that sort of thing happening.
Yeah.
But that's yeah, of course, over time, that yes, of course they're going to exploit the opportunity to keep a little extra money because hey, that's growth, that's extra profit. Yeah, yeah. So
look, I am sick of paying $4 for a dozen eggs, man. This is ridiculous. There's no reason a dozen eggs should cost me $4. So if I get the fancy organic ones, I saw a dozen eggs for $9 at the store the other day, and they were like free range organic. They get, I guess, like the Wagyu of chicken eggs. They're giving these chickens massages and they're playing them spa music. They take them out to Disney World for the day and then charge you $10 for a dozen of their eggs. It's ridiculous. I'm not going to stand for this anymore, Brian.
That's madness. That's crazy. I have no idea why they would be quite so expensive. I'm gonna go buy some chickens. That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a coop in my living room, and I'm just gonna get all the eggs I can handle. I've heard from people who've raised chickens, which I don't honestly don't know why anybody I know would raise chickens, but I've known a few, and they say it is all the eggs you can handle, but also the chickens are an absolute nightmare. So it's kind of
okay.
Balancing act there.
I know that backyard chickens are a thing, and I know in Atlanta there's various groups that like do backyard chickens or whatever, because my homeowners association bans them. I can't do backyard chickens at my house. It's not allowed. But in town Atlanta, apparently they do. And I gotta admit, I'd love to have fresh eggs every day, farm fresh eggs straight from there. But my sister lives in the country in Mississippi, and I went over to visit her a couple years ago for Christmas. I was violently attacked by a rooster. You may have seen the video that attacked by the rooster. But she had like 6 chickens in the rooster, I guess, and they're, in all honesty, they didn't really do much. They just kind of hung out on the roost. They pecked around the yard during the day. They had a little pen where they could get in and a fence around it. And for the most part, they didn't try and get out of there. They just had to go out and feed them each day, and they built them a little coop in that. I don't know exactly what all you're supposed to do to take care of a chicken, but they seemed kind of low maintenance to me. So I don't know.
It may be the guy I talked to, and I don't know the full details about it, but I think he wound up getting accidentally two roosters, and he meant to get a rooster and a hen, and I think that was part of his problem. And I don't know. I think he did wind up getting some hens, but then he had to deal with the multiple roosters and all the shenanigans. It sounded like a mess, and apparently he had them indoors sometimes too, and that seemed even
What?
weirder. I don't know. I
What
don't know.
kind of people do you know? I
I've known some
think
oddballs.
I
Yes.
think you can't have two roosters. I do believe that there becomes turf wars in that case. So I could see that being a problem. I
I
mean, they
think
fight those things in some places.
Mhm.
Roosters
yeah,
will just tear into each other.
Yep.
I think it was a case of he got they screwed up on gendering the chicken somehow. I know that's a
That's
whole
great.
thing,
Okay.
gendering
All right.
chicks or whatever. Like you've got people I've
Yeah.
seen videos about it that can just look at a chicken like, oh, male, female, and you there's no way a normal human being could possibly tell, but they apparently have a sixth sense for
The
this thing.
chicken
So,
whisperers.
yeah, I think they call them chicken
Fun.
sexers.
Fun.
Believe it or not.
I
Yeah.
think you're right. Yeah. All right. That's, that was a great diversion to chicken talk there, Who knows, man? Good stuff. Moving right along, Brian, foam is a hot
Yes.
topic right now. And we've played around with different foamy pours before, and like the Milko pour, I believe it's 4 different kinds that they do in some of Czech bars. I forget the names of them, but there's a Milko and some other ones. But apparently in the US, that's a hot topic right now, right?
Yeah, according to the Washington Post, they're reporting that there is a quote veritable tidal wave of foam-focused beer pours washing across the country. So that's not just us saying it this time, and it's not just Atlanta, which we sometimes get confused and think Atlanta is the world. It seems that the Czech Luker or side pull tap and cask engines are springing up everywhere. And even a blast from the past, the nitro taps of old are making a comeback. Untap reports that an increase of 50% in cask beer check-ins over the last 2 years and a 5.5% increase in nitro check-ins, and I presumably just in the US. At the moment, Untapped does not track side pull taps separately from regular drafts, so if it did, we'd probably see an increase in the Luker taps as well. Luker first sold its tap in the US 8 years ago, and it has since sold over 5,000 of them in the U.S. and they have 6 distributors. Apparently, there are beer venues now that exclusively use Lucre taps, which I've never been to one that does. But the article mentioned Little Lager Beer in St. Louis, so I would love to go there at some point.
Okay.
So I was just thinking, it could be that the Instagrammability of the slow pour with the big foamy head on it, the meringue head, has helped win people over because the aesthetics sometimes is enough. Just like with the Boss pour, it's the aesthetic. I think it definitely helped make Bierstadt Lagerhouse famous on Instagram, and we're in an era I think where well-made lagers without adjuncts are a hot commodity, and maybe your ability to pour a foamy beer is what it'll take to differentiate yourself from your competition.
Are we going to see Milko pours? Is that going to be the next thing we see out at Applebee's getting Milko pours?
Well,
I don't know about Applebee's, but
Yeah.
I suspect like we had a Milko pour at Three Taverns.
Taverns,
We had to
yeah.
ask for it, but they had the ability to do it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing it on menus. Yeah, I hope so.
Brian, it was fun. I don't see me ordering. I don't see me getting it again. It was, yeah, all right, this is fun. This is neat. This is different. It's weird talking about these side pull taps because it really wasn't that long ago. I remember us getting really excited finding out that a beer bar in Atlanta had a side
Yes.
pull. The Porter was
Mhm.
the first place,
Yeah.
as far as I know, in Georgia to get a side pull tap, and we would go down there just for the slow poured side pull tap beer, and they were one that foam. It is impressive to see one
Yeah.
poured properly in that, but now any decent craft bar that we go to, they're at least going to have 1 or 2 of those side pull taps if everyone isn't in there. But yeah, especially for that, look, a lot more common. It's cool, but man, at one time that was like, oh my gosh, side pull, we got to go down there just to get these side pull beers. So
And the crazy thing is the cask too, and we've got 2 cask mark establishments now in Atlanta, and
we do
like that
yeah.
was something you would have never dreamed of 6 years ago when Lucre started selling their taps around in the US, or
Pure
8 years ago,
madness.
excuse me. Yeah, crazy.
I want to see them put a Randall on a Lucre tap on a side pull Randall. That's
Randall.
okay. Here's the thing. I want to figure out how to infuse foam through the process so you can add things, aromatics and other things strictly to the foam. So if we're going to do it instead of Randall in the beer, if foam is cool now, I want to just impact the foam. Maybe we can get. So you know how they have the industrial strength whipped cream makers, Nate? I bet you know the things with the nitrous cartridges and that. Maybe we can make a wort of some sort, or maybe a beer that the specific purpose of that is to create foam, and then infuse it with things, and then you top your beer with a shot of our infused beer foam.
Like
Who's with me? Who's with me?
Maybe
All right.
you're looking for
Let's
like an
play around with it,
espresso.
Nate. Let's play around with
Yeah, I'll
no.
play with that.
No, you're talking like, are you talking like the crema on an
Yeah, like the
espresso?
centrifuge and getting crema and centrifuging some stuff in it, like an espresso for
No. So
for
centrifuge is the Nespresso method of getting a crema.
yeah,
The traditional espresso is pressure. Bars of pressure create
sure,
that
yeah.
create that crema. So I think the purists kind of frown on the Nespresso way of getting it, but as someone with an espresso, I can tell you that's a pretty stout, sturdy crema that it creates. So
I've had
for
a
what
few
it's
of them.
worth,
Yeah.
I don't know what the heck I'm talking about when it comes to that side of things, but I don't know that I would equate this to like a crema. But I'm just saying some beer foam that we put, maybe put some hops in, some additional hops. So you get your beer and you're like, hey, let me add a shot of mosaic, and we top the foam off to bring a little mosaic aroma. And I think it's a ridiculous idea that we're full of bad ideas, Brian. So here's one more to throw out there.
Maybe we get something like a WD-40 can with that long straw, but it's instead of being full of grease, it's full of aromatic air, I guess, just air scent or something like that. CO2, and you just shoot it, you put it in the bottom of the beer, you shoot it through there, and it just spits it all out.
That sounds messy. I don't know about that,
But
I'm willing to try
portable.
it. So
Yeah.
okay, all right.
I still think that if you put the Randall North before the Lucre, and the infusion that would happen in the beer would be accentuated by the foam created by the Lucre, because that aerosolizes some of the aroma, some of the compounds. So I think that you would get more tasty foam having, pass it through a Randall and then out of a
Okay.
Lucre. I think that would
Okay.
probably be the easier way, and then you could have a mechanism for emptying the Randall in between and just having it all connected up. But we
We're
could
gonna
go
have a
WD-40 canned. Yeah, we could do that.
We got a Rube Goldberg machine here by the time we're done with it, trying to get this infused foam on there. So I remember
Yeah.
the same bar that did the side pull, they for a while were doing frozen beer toppers. Like they would
Oh,
float,
yeah.
they would float some frozen beer on top of your beer and do that. So interesting, man. All kinds of crazy things. Nate, are you old enough to remember the Randall craze? Was that before your time, your beer drinking time?
I think it was before my beer drinking time.
Okay,
'Cause
I thought
I
so.
remember you guys
Yeah.
talking about it and explaining what it is, but I don't remember ever seeing it in a
Yeah.
bar.
I think they've probably been gone for the most part about a decade now, wouldn't you say, Brian? That they were probably late aughts to early 2010s is when they were cool.
Yeah, I
Somewhere
remember
in there?
seeing I think I remember seeing, like, late adherence to the Randall, like, putting them out, like,
Yeah.
2013, 2014, but a lot of those places, I think it might have been World of Beer or something like that,
World
that did
Beer
it,
always had
and
a
they
big one.
closed.
Yeah.
Like, all the places that did that
Yeah.
closed, and the places that didn't do it, I don't think ever did do it. Like, none of
Yeah.
the places that have opened up, like, breweries and, bars used to have casks fairly frequently, and those went away, but Randall's were harder to find. I think the World of Beer was the last, like, stalwart of those, and when they opened it up in Atlanta, it was like, "Oh, cool, we can do it again," and then I don't think enough people were that excited about it. So, yeah, I think
Right.
that was a Dogfish Head extreme beer thing of the aughts, really,
Yeah,
their
that's an
heyday.
invention of Dogfish Head for those that aren't aware. That was something old Sam Calagione created. Do you know what a Randall is, Nate? Do you know what a Randall does?
Yeah, so the way you guys have explained it in the past is that it's a chamber that you put additives to beer, and the beer passes through, and it's supposed to pick up some of the either the aroma or the flavors of those additives without putting it into the fermentation chamber or
Right.
into the brew
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, it would be like a canister in line with the beer tap. You know, the beer would run
Mhm.
across that before it was served out, and they would load it with herbs and or I mean like cinnamon sticks, jalapeno peppers, habaneros, cereal, fruit. We did kind of a, you know what, Nate, when we get together, we can do a pseudo Randall with you
A
Okay.
frandle.
because yeah, because we a French press. You can use a French press and
Mm-hmm.
sort of Randall. We did our Mexican Bandito stout that we brewed, Brian. We did it was fantastic Mexican style stout, Nate. I don't know if you ever had any Bandito. I don't know if it survived there, but we took it and frandled it by putting some additional habaneros. And I remember a friend of ours had, it was char from Jack Daniel's barrels it was
Yeah,
meant
that's
to
right.
throw on your barbecue grill and get a little of that char in there. But we put some of those Jack Daniel's barrel chunks in there and some habanero peppers and some cinnamon sticks and I think a vanilla pod.
I
And
think so. Yeah.
I think we let it set for like 30 minutes and then pressed it down. That's the best one I ever did. Like I've tried it with some other things, but that one worked really well. I mean, it really infused those flavors in there and it lit your mouth up pretty good. That ended up being pretty hot on the Randall version.
I wonder if you wanted to maintain more of the carbonation there. I don't think you'd have to press it the whole way, and I think we probably did. But you could press it halfway. All you need is that screen to keep the solids out, so you just get the
Right.
beer. And yeah, it's actually a pretty good solution if you're looking for the Randall effect without having to hook up that mechanism.
Right.
Man, the French press is very versatile. Let me tell you.
Because of the temperature and not wanting to kill the foam, I would definitely think it works better for like a stout. Something that maybe you don't care if you're hugely carbonated and you don't want it ice cold, You can put it in there if it loses a little carb, it's not going to destroy the beer for you there. So
That would definitely be
go
one of
out,
the
try it out, have fun with your beer.
That would definitely be one of the cases where you see the people who do the super careful pour to not have any head at all. If you did
Yep.
that into the frandle, I think that would work out well for you. And then be
Yep.
careful about the plunging part. So anyway,
Somewhere, one of the places I most recently saw Randall, Brian, I don't know if it's still used, but Terrapin Brewery, Atlanta had one
really?
in their upper bar. So we have went there to hang out with those guys a little bit. We always look forward to, they do a stout called Wake and Bake, a coffee oatmeal imperial stout, and they have a wake and bake off there at the brewery. They do one at the mothership brewery in Athens, Georgia, and then a smaller one here in Atlanta. And going up there, and they did some infusions and stuff like that. And Brian, they had my favorite, they had a Michelada bar out there, which is, or Michelada. I believe we were corrected and told that we were saying it wrong, but you get the drift of what we're looking for. But Brian, even if they don't have the Randall, or even if Wake and Bake is not on for you at the time, they're going to have something that you like to drink. They always have a great variety, whether it's a Kolsch, a Pilsner, an IPA, a stout. They're going to have something going strong for you there. As the weather's getting colder, I mean, they're a great place in summer. They're a great place for baseball season because they're right there connected to the Braves Stadium, but they're open year round with delicious barbecue, tasty beers. I just reached out to Mark. He was busy. Mark is the manager there, our good friend. He's going to let me know what the latest and greatest is coming down the pipeline so we can share it with you, so you know what is going to be tapping there. But go check them out if you're at the Battery, or even if you're not, make a trip to Terrapin Brewery, Atlanta. Tell them the beer guys sent you.
That's a great idea. And another place you could go now that it's finally starting to feel like the time to drink some holiday themed beers. Honestly, I've been drinking Sierra Nevada Celebration this whole time ever since it released. So I don't always adhere to this, but it feels right now. So I think it's time to go to Truck and Tap and see what they have pouring that's worthy of a holiday celebration. So I did just that. I went to truckandtap.com and looked to see what I would recommend. What would I drink looking for some holiday themed beers? So at the Woodstock location, my seasonal pick is Six Bridges Enduring Growth IPA. Now, hold on. I know it's an IPA. It's a West Coast IPA with spruce tips, fresh spruce tips, and I think it's only comes around this time of year. And I love a good spruce tip beer, and I think it's about as close as you can get to drinking a Christmas tree. So I think this counts as a seasonal a beer for the holidays. Now the choice is also easy at Truck and Tap Alpharetta. How can you not have a beer called "You'll Shoot Your Eye Out," where the Yule is spelled Yule, as in log? It's a winter warmer from Stillfire Brewing that has reportedly has hints of chocolate, nutmeg, and cinnamon, and that sounds great. Definitely would enjoy that. Another easy pick at Truck and Tap Duluth. I'm going to go with Left Hand's Candy Cane Nitro, which is an Imperial Peppermint Milk Stout, which I need some lactate for this already. On Nitro, of course. And Nitro is cool again, as we've discussed. So, yeah, got to get that. And finally, I'm going with Allagash's Snow Report at the Lawrenceville location. I'll be honest, it's mostly for the name, but an Imperial Saison brewed with wildflower honey does sound like a beer that would keep you warm during the cold months. And when was the last time you had a bad beer from Allagash anyway? They're one of the top 30 breweries in the country, according to an earlier story. So obviously you got to get that. But if my picks aren't going to do it for you, don't worry. Each Truck and Tap location has 20 taps to choose from. And there will be one that is the right beer for you. And if you're into wine and spirits, that's there for you as well. Of course, when you drop by, you need to tell them that the beer guy sent you, because we did. We did admit it.
We did.
Sent you.
We did.
Yeah.
Tell them. Say that.
Tell them,
We're going to
yeah.
be doing a show with those guys in the new year. We've got. I'm going to hold on to what our concept is right now because it's still developing, but I think it's going to be a fun one. I think we're going to have a good time with this one.
Always a good time at Truck and Tap. I've never
Always
had
a good
bad
time.
at
The
Truck and Tap.
last time we got together with them was for a sake show, and that was
Yeah.
at their Feast location at the Battery.
Taps
And
Feast.
we learned a lot about sake. We tried some sake, and we wrapped the night up by doing sake bombs with them, which were messy and fun. So
amazing.
yeah, good times. Good
Yes.
times. Brian, now we enter the drama part of the show, which there has to be a little bit of that. We've been talking for a while now, ever since the Ukraine invasion started. Companies pulling out of Russia. And we talked about, I believe it was Heineken that said they were leaving, and they did, and they hung out for a while. But Carlsberg was another one that hung on. Well, Carlsberg's having some trouble now for doing that, right, Brian?
Yeah, they are. And I did look, and Heineken, I think, is officially completely out finally. It took
Okay.
them a long time
Yeah.
to do it. But anyway, so yeah, this is playing out like the worst case scenario for any international brewery that had a presence in Russia at the start of the Ukraine war, the invasion. The timeline seems to be at some point earlier this year, Russia introduced rules allowing it to seize the assets of firms from, quote, unfriendly countries. So, yeah, wow, that's wide open. Carlsberg was in the process of selling its Russian assets and leaving the Russian market. Russia seized Carlsberg's subsidiary, Baltica Breweries, in July while the sale was in process. This order was apparently signed by Vladimir Putin himself. So he was very specific about keeping this from happening. Carlsberg, who apparently is a little slow in the uptake, terminated all of its Russian business in October in response. So July to October took him that long. Maybe they were working some back channels or something. Who knows? Russia then responded by arresting the boss and top manager of Baltica Brewing in November and accused them of fraud. Of course, Carlsberg is saying the fraud allegations are fake and part of Russia's justification for outright seizing the brewery, and that they have always acted in accordance with all the laws and the policies. I mean, my only question is why on earth was Carlsberg even still there? Did they not see this coming? Because I think we were talking about this likely to be happening for anybody who had a brewery operating in Russia, especially if they were looking to get out, then do it quickly, you know? But anyway, so I did. Part of the reason I knew that Heineken was completely out, I happened to see a report. Yale's business school, I think, is keeping a listing of all these international companies and their status as to what the relationship is with Russia. You know, because they all had a presence there. Over 1,000 companies have announced they are voluntarily curtailing operations in Russia by some degree beyond the bare minimum legally required by international sanctions since the beginning of the Ukraine invasion. And I happened to see the Heineken was on that list, but Carlsberg isn't there yet. They're in the process of it. So
I remember some pulled out right away, and it seemed to me like with everything going on, that was the right call. Shut it down and get out of the way there. So if you're there, what are we, 2 years into a year and a half?
I don't 2 years.
It's been a while, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows, man? I don't know enough about the politics inside Russia to really have an opinion on that, even though I don't usually let something like not knowing what I'm talking about stop me from talking about something. But I would just think if you're still there as an international company, definitely seems like you're playing with fire, you know, with things.
Yeah, I think it's a case of if you're there, you have to never say anything about leaving, because if you do, there's a chance you'll be sees, because there's a lot of big names I noticed that still operate and have made no thoughts about changing how they work.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting which businesses do that, but if you start talking about leaving, you need to be out of there almost immediately,
Yeah.
because
Don't
this
talk
can
about it.
happen.
Just get
Yeah.
out. Just
Either
get
do
out.
it or don't do it. One of the two at this point, because they're set up to just take your stuff and
You're just
arrest you, maybe.
you're
Yeah,
gonna fall out of a window, man. Don't chance it. You'll end up
that's right.
falling out of a window.
When they
So
start building a balcony on
right.
your apartment, you're in trouble.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's been like, look, this McDonald's does not need a balcony. There's no need for this here. It's like Putin's like, go, take a look. Take a look at the view. You're like, nah, I'm good.
The
I'm
view is
fine.
beautiful. The
I'm
view is
fine.
beautiful.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Brian, a little more domestically and a little less dramatically. We talked last week about everything going on with Bevana, the lawsuits, the accusations, and things there. Brian, I think this kind of thing we may hear, there's probably more of this going on that we know about that's maybe not making the national news circuit, but we know times are tough for a lot of breweries out there. We were talking to a brewer earlier today, and just he's just kind of at his ropes in there. He's like, I'm doing everything I can, to save my brewery, and there's continued contraction, and I'm losing accounts, and someone's getting mad at me because my beer is $10 more than a macro import or something like that. He's basically just saying, y'all, it's tough. I'm working my tail off to make things work, and and I'm fighting an uphill battle here. So I know his story is not unique right now for breweries out there. With that, you guarantee, man, when some people get into a tough spot, sometimes they do things that they shouldn't. And some people don't even have to get into a tough spot for that to happen. But this week's news, Brian, is about Denver's Joyride Brewing Company. What's happening there?
Yeah, Joyride Brewing is suing one of their co-founders. Allegedly, this co-founder racked up $420,000 in unapproved debt and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of brewery money paying the bills for two other businesses he was involved in. One of them was another brewery that hasn't opened. And the other is a well-known club in the area that was aware of what was happening allegedly, and where the money was coming from, and they're not going to refund any of it. All told, this co-owner is allegedly said to have drained over $1 million from Joyride's account since 2022. And it's interesting. It's 2022 when all this started happening. I happen to know that I think he started the brewery with the other co-founders in 2014. So apparently behaved up until that point, which is interesting. But as a result, Joyride is apparently going into bankruptcy. But the article indicates it's that kind of bankruptcy where it's non-fatal and they're reorganizing. So I don't know which. It's one of the chapters.
Chapter 7. I don't know my different. I think it's chapter 7 is the one that allows you to.
Yeah,
There's 7 and 11 are the chapters, or the two chapters that I know there, Brian.
it's probably one of the two. I don't either.
Yeah.
I'm not an accountant and I
Fair.
don't know a lot about that. But my thought was reading this in like what you were saying before I got into this, with the crazy growth of craft beer kind of being a thing of the past. I feel like we're going to see more stories like this, simply because when money is pouring in, it's really easy to like hide financial misbehavior. Like you can move some money around because money is coming in so fast that it's not noticed. But when things get tighter and you have to start really looking at the books to see where things are going, that's when you notice that your co-founder may be paying his own bills out of the company account.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And this is, I mean, we've talked about a few of these already. There was a big, I'm forgetting the brewery already, but there was a big thing. Same thing, financial misappropriation from an owner, businesses shutting down, a lot of trouble with that, man, and it's not an uncommon theme for them to funnel money from one business to the other, and so robbing old Peter to pay Paul there, Brian. So
yeah, it's crazy. Actually paying a brewery's bills that hasn't opened yet with an existing opening brewery. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
that's
allegedly
a good
again.
method. Yeah,
Yeah, allegedly. All
the
this is alleged.
alleged
Don't sue us. We don't know anything.
the alleged allegations, Brian.
That's right.
Yes, good
Alleged
stuff.
allegations.
Well, awesome. Well, y'all, thank you so much for hanging out with us again this week. We definitely appreciate it. If you enjoy what we do here, we would love for you to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/beerguys. Beer Guys swag, some cool new swag coming up. That Smalls worked on a project, and we're going to be getting that up soon. for our Patreon supporters. And we'll invite you to the Discord chat. You can come chat with us every day about beer or anything else. And we'll give you a link to come join us in the after party after each show's taping. We'd love to have you do just that. But thank you so much for tuning in. We hope y'all oh, wait, hold on. Let me back up. 2 weeks, y'all. 2 weeks, our annual holiday interfaith craft beer tasting spectacular is coming. So y'all check that out. Keep an eye out for it. Coming in 2 weeks. We love it. We invite our friends over from Rainy Day Brewing. They're Jewish, and so that makes this an interfaith celebration, and it's a good time. And we blind taste some holiday beers, pick out our favorites. Always an awesome time. But once again, y'all, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers. Done.
Okay.
Clear.
I finally broke myself of the habit of waving at the end of that because they're not it's not the end of the stream and they're not actually watching. So it's why am I waving? Yeah. I got to tell you, this big slurp, this Wrecking Bar Big Slurp Imperial IPA. Oh my God, this is really good. Yeah, it's got a Christmas tree on it too.
Slurpee.
Ooh, look at that.
Yeah,
Big
yeah,
slurp.
yeah.
Wow.
Such slurptacular.
There you go.
I need more of these.
What was the one in Futurama? Slurms
Yeah.
McKenzie, I think.
Slurms McKenzie. Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff.
I still need to watch. They had a whole new season. Of
They
that,
got a new
didn't they? Like
season.
recently.
They do. Yeah.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Do you know
you
where
got
that's
a lot of
streaming?
catching up to do. You still need to see Arrested Development.
Yes.
You got to watch
Archer. There's at least a series of Archer
more.
I haven't seen.
I haven't liked the latest seasons of Archer.
Oh.
I don't think they're as good. I think they're grabbing at straws now with storyline. So still like Archer. I just don't think the latest seasons have been that great. But
the Archer pinball game was fun to play.
That
online.
is, yeah. That's fun. It's tough, man. It's tough. I can't beat those darn mini games. So
Speaking of pinball, I know it's way off the beaten path for us, but there is a pinball museum in between downtown
Blue Ridge
LA
area
and Blue Ridge. Yep.
Yeah.
Really?
It shares a parking lot with a Bigfoot museum.
I didn't know they shared a parking lot, but I did know.
Yeah.
So my cousin is coming to town next week, and they're getting a cabin up in North Georgia. And I mentioned to him, I was like, hey, there's a pinball museum up there. And I was like, if you want to double down, it's apparently right next to the Sasquatch Museum. So
it's all fun and timely because I just watched a movie the other night with the wife I think it's called Dark Divide. And David Cross, is he from Arrested Development's in it? And he goes on a hike, and it's kind of anyway.
Tobias
Bigfoot
Funke.
is a yes, exactly that fella.
Yeah,
and but Bigfoot is a part of that somehow. It's it's kind of a weird but cool movie. I enjoyed it. So it made me want to go to a Bigfoot museum after watching that.
David Cross is typically in kind of obscure comedic kind of roles and stuff. Is that apply here?
Yeah, he had that same, because I've seen a little bit of Arrested Development. He had the same weird kind of self-deprecating and a little insecure type of like jokiness to him. It was not quite the same. It was a little toned down, but there was definitely some of the Tobias Funke there.
The snark.
Yeah, there was some of it. Yeah, there was. Yeah, I won't spoil it, but
all right. Good stuff. Well, y'all, we are going to end the live stream now. Again, if you are a Patreon supporter, go to the Discord chat. We're going to give you a link to come hang out with us at the after party. Hope y'all have a good week, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.